guys, and welcome back. Today I am working on a digital illustration, and when I first started this off it was going to be something quicker and more of a sketch, and it ended up taking a lot longer than I had planned, which is good because it meant that I was getting really into it, and I did end up finishing this to a full completed illustration. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about coming up with ideas for your illustrations. I mean, this is a huge topic, so in no means do I think this is going to be all inclusive, but I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I think about when I am struggling to come up with ideas. And this is something that probably most artists struggle with from one point to another. I find that I will start a piece and then I'll look at it and it'll just won't have a spark. I'll have no interest in it because there's just not that thing that's making me really interested in that piece, really interested in finishing it and seeing where it goes and seeing how I can render it out. And I find that that's really the difference between me feeling really engaged with a piece and me feeling very bored with a piece, even from the very beginning, is when there's that design element that's really interesting. And a lot of times that's usually something very unique and different. And sometimes I'll have an idea that is really interesting and it sparks me and I work on a piece. And by the time I get to the end, it really has changed a lot over time. And I actually really love those pieces. I feel like those are the ones that I grow the most because I'm letting myself adapt to what the piece is becoming and change it as I work on it. But in this piece today, I had just a basic idea of how I wanted to have a very, very bright, saturated light on a character's face. And I don't know if anyone's been watching this, but the new season of Samurai Jack launched a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month. I don't know, but it's been absolutely incredible. And I've always loved that show for inspiration. It's super illustrative and very graphic in the way that they design things. And I love looking and watching those episodes to get ideas. But I've been watching the new season. No spoilers, I'm not caught up. But there's this part where there is this really sharp, saturated light, this highlight on Jack's face. And I loved how it looked. It was really inspiring, and I wanted to create a piece that had a similar element to that so I could really experiment with that and see if I can push that in my own work. And that was the original concept. That was the spark of an idea for this piece. And it doesn't actually end up like that at all by the time I get to the end of it. But as I mentioned, it's okay because that was that thing that got me diving in and working on this piece. And if I didn't have that initial idea to explore with, I really wouldn't have pushed this piece at all, and I wouldn't have ended up at the place that I am now. I do think that I'd like to do a piece where I go back and I focus on that original idea because I still really want to try that out. But where it ended up taking me today, I'm totally okay with the fact that it was a very roundabout thing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when I'm coming up with ideas, sometimes it's really helpful for me to just get inspiration from something. If it's how another artist paints fire, or how they rendered out a certain facial feature, or even if it's just this one little thing where it's something that I am interested in exploring, even just something tiny like that is often enough to get me working on a piece, getting me drawing. And that's the biggest thing, is getting momentum working on something. But like I mentioned, that initial idea oftentimes isn't even represented in my final illustrations, especially when I'm working digitally. And I like that because it means that I can be very fluid with the designs and the choices that I'm making. But like this one, I decided to do a quick color treatment while I was working on the sketch and right as I was starting the line work to make sure that this really strong saturated light source, that it would be something that I could pull off and that it was something that had the same impact that it had in my head. And when I tried it out and I did these color treatments, I just wasn't really into it. It really wasn't working the way that I thought it would. It didn't really have the same strength. And I absolutely know that I could have made something work, and I do want to revisit this idea, but it made me feel a little bit more disconnected with this piece because I felt more lost. I felt like that idea wasn't really going to work with this, or it wasn't working with me today, at least. And sometimes that's the thing, is that I can have a great idea, but it doesn't mean that I can make it happen every day. Sometimes I'm just not in the right zone to make that exact thing happen. And I think today, just that one idea just wasn't really working for me. So I realized that I needed to reprioritize, but as I was doing that color treatment, it did bring to light the fact that her face design was just not where I wanted it to be. I had kind of passed over it and decided that it was okay, and I was starting to work on more sides, but I did realize that I was not happy with her face. It needed more sketching out and refinement, and I wanted it to have a little bit more grace to it and strength, and I didn't want it to be this fussy design that was kind of happening at the beginning. So I fixed her face, and as I was fixing it, that was the perfect opportunity for me to think through what design element I could bring in that would replace that thing that I was no longer interested in pursuing. And the idea that got me back into being interested in this piece is actually from my husband, because we were talking about a different piece that I'd worked on yesterday, and he was mentioning about having this shattered eye, and I love doing effects with eyes where they look injured or really sore or broken like this one. So this is the perfect place to put it into action. And I was really excited about figuring out how can I render that out? How can I show that kind of an element throughout the piece, having it influence other areas is what I mean. So once I remembered that and I wanted to work forward on that, it made me interested in the piece again. And I think that's just the biggest takeaway is I need to have a little interest or a little spark of something that I'm excited about working on to make me interested in that piece. And I know that I want to add more to it. I usually try to push it and think of more and more elements. And a lot of times I like to push it past the point and add too many elements. And then I realize, okay, this one is a step too far. And then when I remove that one, it's usually just right because I push it up to that point. And so for this one, I did that shattered eye. I was really excited about it, and I really love the idea of it. And I just started designing that out and figuring it out. And ultimately, I had these other design elements. I started adding magnolias, and I love these flowers. They have these huge, thick petals. And I love the idea of having it almost wallpapered in the background. And as I was working on that, I started thinking, how can I incorporate that even more? Because I accidentally moved the layer up on top of her skin layer, and it looked really cool how it was affecting the colors and the liner underneath it. So I decided I wanted to duplicate that and create almost this crown of flowers a little bit, where it had this really glowy, very iridescent quality to it. And that was that second idea that got me moving and rolling. And once I had these two ideas going on, well, I guess it's kind of three actually. It's the broken eye and this glowing flower crown, and then the magnolias for the background. Those three elements push this piece into something that I was really excited about and really interested in, and it was unique and different from my other pieces. So I just find that the way that I get to pieces that I'm most happy with usually has multiple design elements that I'm really interested in, but a lot of them don't come to me until after I'm already working on it and I'm looking for new things to incorporate into it. But honestly, I think the biggest thing that I was most excited about working on this piece was working on my rendering skills. I am ready to push my rendering, painting, digital painting skills to the next level. I have been very much in a little box for my digital style for a long time now, where I do very, very sharp line work and then very solid flatted colors. And I've been very slowly incorporating more of a blended look very, very lightly, but I'm ready to find a better way to incorporate my love for line art, but also a much more rich environmental piece, something that can have more lighting, more shadows, something that has more life to it in the way that I blend it out. And I am really excited about going on this journey and figuring that out and getting better at it. So that's really what I was most excited about on this one, is just figuring out a little bit of a better technique for me to render skin and to make that have a little bit more life to it. And that is it for today's video. I will definitely have more videos expanding on the idea of coming up with ideas and different ways to do that and different ways to incorporate them into pieces you're already working on. There is a lot I'd love to talk about that, about idea generation as an artist, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I will have this piece available as a print, so if you'd like to own her, I will have a link down in the description as well as in the end card that'll take you to my art shop. And I do post every Wednesdays and Saturdays, so if you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. I do have lots more content for you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys at my next one.